All right, today we are breaking down a moment that could literally rewrite the future for Uniswap, one of the absolute giants of DeFi. There is a massive vote wrapping up as we speak, and believe me, the stakes could not be higher. Let's get right into it.
So the big question on everyone's mind is this. Is Uniswap about to have a massive breakout? I mean, the token price has already been on the move, and with this vote happening, we're going to explore if this is the trigger for its next huge leg up. Okay, first things first, let's talk about the vote itself. This is not some minor tweak or a small parameter change. No, this is a proposal that's set to completely reshape the Uni token from the ground up. It's something people have been talking about for years, and the deadline is literally today.
So, what's actually on the table here? It's a three-parter, and each piece is a game changer. First, they're talking about burning 100 million Uni tokens. Poof, gone. Which would, of course, reduce the total supply. Second, they want to finally flip on the fee switch. This is the big one. It means a slice of the trading fees could start flowing directly to the people who hold the token. And third, something we've never really seen before, a legally binding agreement with Uniswap Labs, the core team behind the protocol.
Now, this legal part is what makes this whole thing truly groundbreaking. Seriously, this isn't just some pinky promise on the blockchain. It uses specific Wyoming DAO laws to create a real, formal, honest-to-goodness contract. It would be the first time the dev team is legally required to follow through on what the token holders vote for. That's a huge deal for governance.
So, is it going to pass? Well, the on-chain data pretty much says it all. With a whopping 97% of votes saying yes, this thing looks like a lock. The community has spoken, and they've spoken very, very loudly.
But to really get why this vote is such a massive deal, you have to appreciate the absolute beast of an engine that's running under the hood. So let's take a quick look at the core numbers that make Uniswap the powerhouse it is.
Just look at that number, $4 trillion. That's how much trading volume has passed through Uniswap since it started. It's a number so big it's almost hard to imagine, and it just shows you how utterly dominant this protocol is in this space.
And all that trading, well, it generates an insane amount of fees. In fact, if you look at every single app running on the Ethereum mainnet, Uniswap is consistently number one for fees paid. This isn't just some popular DApp, it's a fundamental economic engine for the entire network.
Now this is where things get really wild. A report from ARK Invest did this incredible comparison. They looked at how much trading volume each employee generates. For a centralized exchange like Coinbase or Crypto.com, the number is, well, it's fine. But for Uniswap, which is mostly just automated code, the number is astronomical. It's a level of efficiency that traditional companies can only dream of.
So when you've got that kind of scale and that kind of insane efficiency, you're not just playing in the DeFi sandbox anymore. You start to become a real threat to the old guard, to centralized finance itself.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. Matt Hogan, who's a really respected voice in the institutional world, said this. This quote tells you that the smart money is officially paying attention. They're looking past the crypto hype and analyzing Uniswap like they would any other high-growth Silicon Valley startup.
You know, the big difference this cycle is the data. It's not just guesswork anymore. We have rock-solid, verifiable, on-chain data. That means numbers written directly onto the blockchain that nobody can argue with. An analyst at a big bank can now pull this data, build a real valuation model, and make a case. And that's exactly why the big institutions are finally starting to pile in. So what's the game plan for going completely mainstream? It's really a three-pronged attack. First, you integrate with on-ramps like Revolut to make it super easy for people to move their money from old-school finance into DeFi. Second, you get embedded so deeply into every major wallet, Trust Wallet, Ledger, you name it, that you're just there. And the final step, you become the go-to place for trades, maybe even making people think twice before using a centralized exchange at all.
And a huge weapon in that fight is going to be fees. It's simple, right? Because Uniswap is so efficient, it can offer way lower fees than its competitors. When the market really starts to heat up and everyone is trading, that cost difference could be the #1 reason millions of new users flood into DeFi.
So you put all these pieces together, the historic vote, the institutional money sniffing around, the rock-solid growth, and it starts to feel a little familiar, doesn't it? It has a lot of people asking the big question, are we about to see another DeFi summer?
If you were around for it, you'll remember DeFi Summer 1.0 back in 2020. That was kicked off by a frenzy of incentives and airdrops. It was wild.
The argument this time, though, is that a DeFi Summer 2.0 would be built on something much more solid. Real yield coming from actual fees, serious institutional capital, and undeniable fundamental value.
So what does this all mean for the price, for the valuation? I mean, looking at some pretty reasonable scenarios, a 10x from where we are now is definitely not off the table. A more bullish case could even see a 15x move, putting its market cap somewhere around $9 billion. This just gives you an idea of the kind of scale we could be talking about if all these catalysts really catch fire.
And you want to know what might be the most bullish sign of all? Look at who isn't in yet. The biggest names in institutional crypto, Grayscale, Bitwise, the list goes on. They still have next to zero exposure to Uniswap. When that wall of money finally decides it's time to get serious about DeFi, where do you think they're going to look first? They're going to look for the biggest, most trusted names, and Uniswap is right at the top of that list.
Which brings us right back to our main question. You've got a historic vote that's about to turn on the money printer, an economic engine that's bigger and more efficient than almost anything out there, and a tidal wave of institutional interest just waiting on the sidelines. Is this the moment that finally crowns Uniswap the undisputed king of DeFi? Well, only time will tell, but it sure looks like all the pieces are falling into place.